but at the same time, let them know that, hey, we can get through this together.
We can recover, rebuild, and renew from it.
Wow, you remember.
Those 3 R's, they're easy to remember, but they're so important. Well, good evening, Sassuo. Good evening, Navy Region, Japan. This is Chaplain Lawrence with episode 14 of Taps with Chaps. We're continuing our discussion today about resiliency and what that looks like, and I've brought with us a subject matter expert to talk to us about that and continue that conversation. I'd like to welcome to the show Captain David Young, who's the chaplain for Navy Region Japan, Navy Forces Japan. So welcome, Chaplain Young.
Well, thank you, Chaplain Lawrence.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself, sir. What's your background?
So my background is I'm originally from Korea. Busan, Korea. I was born and raised there, and then we immigrated to the U.S. when I was 14, and then grew up in Maryland. Actually, Pennsylvania for about half a year. Then we moved down to Maryland. Went to school there, high school there, and then joined the Navy when I was in seminary, of all places. A friend of mine, my roommate actually at the time was a student who was looking into chaplaincy on the Army side. And then he kind of introduced me to that side of the world. And then for some reason, I ended up joining the Navy because I could not get in touch with the Army recruiters. So the Navy recruiter got hold of me in Dallas, Texas. And then he convinced me the Navy has the best uniform, best everything. And I should not have believed him. No. I believed him. And then for some reason, then it kind of started from there. And then while I was at the seminary, looked into the chaplaincy, and then became a reserve chaplain. And then here I am, a bunch of years later, now an active duty chaplain, been in the service for a number of years.
What are some of the assignments that you had as a chaplain?
So when I was with the reserve side, I had assignments with the CVs and with the medical battalion. And then toward the end of my assignment with the reserve side, I was at the Naval Academy. I spent a year there, and wonderful time, an awesome time there. And then my first active duty assignment was with 2MEF, with the Marines. So I was deployed to Iraq with one of the units there, 2nd Radio Battalion, out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and came back. And then once I finished there, the Navy sent us to Japan. So we spent a couple of years in Yokosuka, Japan. I was at the USS George Washington.
Okay.
So my first ship tour there in the Navy. And then following that tour, we were sent to Korea, Shinhae, Korea, where I'm originally from. So we were very happy that Navy sent us, pay for our move and everything to live us there where we originally came from, both my wife and I. So great experience there for 2 years. And then we went back to the States. I was at the War College for a year. I got my a degree there. The Navy allowed me to do that at the War College. And following that tour, we were in Norfolk, Virginia. I was at a command called Navy Warfare Development Command, working on Chaplain Corps doctrine for the fleet side. And then following that tour, we came back to Japan for the second time. Then I became the command chaplain for USS Ronald Reagan, the FDNF carrier out of Yokosuka, Japan. So our second tour in Japan. Following that tour, then we thought we were going back to the U.S., finally back to the stateside, but Navy had different plans. We ended up in Guam, in the Pacific Ocean, and we spent a couple of years there at the region, Joint Region Marianas. And then 2 years later, we ended up for the third time here in Japan. All 3 times, interestingly, over in Yokosuka, Japan. So this time with the region Japan and Naval Forces Japan.
Well, that's awesome. So you've had a wealth and a breadth of experiences and assignments. Throughout all of that, how have you come to see and experience and define resiliency? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, that's a big word, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a buzzword as well, resiliency. I think you may have had people give various definitions, and I think that the most common one that we find is that the ability to cope with the adversity and stress, And I think we all go through that at some point in our lives. That I think none of us is immune to those types of stressors and difficulties and hard moments in life. And how do we bounce back? How do we get back to where we need to be? We may not bounce back to exactly where we were before, but how do we change? How does change mean to us? And how do we get back to where we need to be at that particular moment in our life journey, right? So I think that's kind of how I define resiliency.
What does it look like through the eyes of a chaplain? How does a chaplain enter into that discussion and that topic specifically?
Yeah, being in in the Navy and in the Chaplain Corps, obviously we deal with sailors and Marines and also family members. So in terms of what we do as chaplains with resiliency or toughness or whatever the word that of the day is how do we assist our service members and their families to respond in a way that is positive and life-building. So that's what I try to promote, being in the service and being a chaplain over the years. How do I assist my sailors? How do I assist my Marines to get back to the fight, if you will, but at the same time, in their life journey, make sense of what happened and also grow from that experience, if at all possible.
I think that's great, that we can enter into people's lives in a deep and meaningful way, and that has an impact possibly for the rest of their life, that changes them and alters them. That's one unique thing about our roles as chaplains, is to really go into places in people's lives that no one else can kind of touch. Are there particular issues that you've seen throughout your career that kind of crop up time and again, kind of the, I would say like the common issues or typical issues that we see around resiliency?
Yeah, I think it's no different than any of us, whether we are in the military or out in the civilian side, because we all go through adversities in life, right? Various trying moments, tough moments that we go through in terms of our relationships, in terms of our jobs, in terms of our families. I think no different. Of course, being a sailor and being a service member, there are particular challenges that we all face as a result of that, with long deployments, family separation, and those sort of things. But again, I think it all goes back to, okay, how do we address those difficult moments then? Instead of kind of being down and out, I would say three R's, right? How can we recover? And how can we rebuild? And how can we be renewed? I think are the key terms that I would use in working with our sailors and families, that we cannot avoid stressors or hard moments and trying times in life. But how can we actually recover from them and to rebuild out of the ashes, if you will, and to be renewed in some sense, whether it's a spiritual sense or whether it's whatever sense that is applicable to that person, come out of that and be renewed and whole again. That despite the circumstances, despite the situations that we may be going through, that there may be people that are going through probably even tougher times in life than what we are facing at the moment. But that is not to diminish that what we are going through, right? So if we see somebody that is going through some trying times, I think it makes sense to be there and to talk and to acknowledge the pain. But at the same time, let them know that, hey, we can get through this together. We can recover, rebuild, and renew from it. Wow, you remember? Those 3 R's, they're easy to remember, but they're so important. Yeah, I think so. As part of the process. Yeah. And a lot of what our discussion has been around, especially focusing those 3 R's on a particular issue, has been COVID-19 and how that has impacted us so dramatically in the past 9 months and really kind of changed
changed and shaped a lot of the resiliency issues or discussion. How do you see COVID-19 impacting the resiliency fight?
Yeah, I think it impacts us in a huge way, but I think we have dealt with it pretty well.
Yeah.
I think as the people that are facing it directly here, particularly here in Japan, in various spaces and the country as a whole. Now, before coming here, I told you that I was in Guam. So we had the USS Theodore Roosevelt be stricken with COVID. So they pulled into Guam for several months actually, before they were able to set sail and then get back to their mission and ultimately return back to San Diego, to their home port. And I personally dealt with, thousands of sailors there as they came off the ship and had to be quarantined. Many of them had to be isolated because they tested positive. And then sometimes they would get tested in the beginning before they went into quarantine or isolation. Depending on the results, they were put in one place or another. And they had to get tested again, sometimes multiple times, before they were cleared to return to the ship. And how the sailors responded to that, which I thought was tremendous. They could have said, "Man, I can't do this. Why are you doing this to us? Navy, why are you doing this to us?" Whatever, they could have blamed somebody or they could have been down on themselves, but they took it in stride. And they took care of themselves, but even more importantly, they took care of each other. And they stood side by side, and they made it through. And I thought that was a huge testament to what our sailors are like. So our young 18 to 25-year-old, sailors and chiefs and officers, they all hung in it together. Ultimately at the end, they're all able to come back, except for one sailor that we lost. But they're all able to come back and join together, and to be the one group again, on that ship.
And hopefully, stronger, having gone through that experience, more resilient coming out on the other side of that. That's a tremendous impact in their lives that they'll probably never forget. That it will be a reflection point back in many times in their life when they face something similar.
And I think probably going through that experience, some of them may have wondered, "Man, I can't believe that I'm in this right now, that this is happening to me." But I think as they look back, right, now looking back several months prior, as they look back maybe several years later or decades later, that they could look back with the memory that, wow, we made it through. Yeah. And I became a person that, probably a little bit different person than before. And hopefully it was a growing experience for them. They could kind of reflect on and be able to share with others who may be going through some tough times themselves.
Yeah, that's so important. And when service members or families, encounter a resiliency challenge or something that really pushes them, what are some of the resources that they have to kind of fall back on, to reach out to? What are some of the things in our toolbox that we can use to assist sailors and family members?
I'm sure you've heard from other guests on the show that the resources that we all have, chaplains, the medical personnel, the fleet and family, military one source, all wonderful resources that we have in our disposal. And we ought to use them when we are facing some challenges. Don't try to do it alone, right? But to reach out to any one of those resources. But more importantly, I think you need to reach out to your close friends, your shipmates, and family members that are there to support you. And never think that you're going through this alone, because if you just look beyond the immediate scope of things in front of you, you do realize that there are other people around that may be going through the same thing, or share the same kind of struggles that we all struggle with. So I think it's very important to remember that to keep that support network in place, and also be able to use yourself as a resource. That the people have said that you need to be compassionate to yourself, kind of apply that self-compassion, but at the same time, that apply the compassion to other people as well, so that you're able to say, okay, at some point, I'm going to get through this. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
At some point, and just being patient with it and working on it, best you can, and to utilize the resources that are available to you, whether it be your friends, shipmates, or family members, or other people, or other resources we just talked about, and take it, a little bit at a time, and then make it through at the end. Because at the end of the day, I think we're gonna see a bright day that's ahead of us.
Yep.
And even this COVID environment, right? That and I'm glad to hear that Sasebo, you guys are in a little better state than we are up in Yokosuka. But even there, I think folks can kind of look forward to the day where we'll have more, less restrictions and be able to enjoy more of the life that is available to us here in Japan.
I think one of the things that we encounter, we hear with Navy leadership keeps driving home is that, it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to say, I need help. I need something to get me through this, or I need to talk to somebody. And then, as you said, when we ourselves have encountered an issue where our resiliency has been tested, we can become a resource to a shipmate, to a friend, to a family member who's going through something very similar, and we can look back and say, maybe through whatever twists of fate worked its way, I can help this person now with the same issue.
Yeah, I think that acknowledgement is half the battle, right there. If we say, hey, can somebody just listen to me? Or can I just reach out to someone? I think once you make that step, that leap of faith there, I think you just won half the battle right there.
Agreed, yeah.
Instead of just holding it in or trying to deal with it all by yourself. If we just step out a little bit, I think there are people that will be more than happy, glad to assist us and just be there for us and listen to us and just walk alongside us and get through it together. So I think that is so important. And as we have come out of something, if we have learned something out of it, that we have recovered and rebuilt and are renewed, then share that experience, right? I think that's also important to remember because, again, we all struggle with things in life. It may be from person to person, case by cases, but it doesn't change that we all go through some struggles in life, some major, some big. So if we can share our experiences and share what we have done that has worked for us, for those who may be going through some struggles now, I think that's how we get through things as a community, as a group, as people. And I think in this COVID environment, I think that's also very important to remember that we're all going through this together.
Yes.
Right. So I think it's very important to be constructive about the whole thing instead of being negative. But okay, how do we work through this together? I think that's the important thing to remember, that hey, we're all facing this adversity together. How can we support each other and then make it through as community, as the base, as shipmates, and so on?
That's awesome. And any final thoughts that you want to share with us on the topic of resiliency, or as a chaplain?
Continue to stay in the fight.
Yep.
Don't give up. And again, this too shall pass. And we'll see better days ahead. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's a sunlight that's waiting for us after the storms. So keep that in mind.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience. And thank you to all of the service members and the families, both here in Sasebo, in 7th Fleet, and in Navy Region Japan, for all of your resiliency, all your continued efforts to keep our forces ready and to take care of each other and be good shipmates. This is Chaplain Lawrence signing off with this week's episode of Taps with Chaps, and we'll see you next week. Take care.